the top dollar competition in Venezuela. Today we discuss.
Welcome to Venezuela Insider, the only place in Venezuela for expats, digital nomads, entrepreneurs, investors, travelers, and related internationals. For more information, venezuelainsider.com.
One of the nuances and one of the trends that we are seeing in Venezuela since the start of the recovery, the economic recovery in 2018, is that many small and mid-sized entrepreneurs and investors are betting on the top, or the top echelon of the population regarding income. So they are creating different goods and services that are catered towards the high-end rich Venezuelan. I'm talking fancy real estate, fancy restaurants, fancy hotels, fancy touristic services, of course, fancy clothing, fancy apparel, fancy experiences on leisure and hospitality, and so on and so on. And actually, some of these things that are considered high-end in Venezuela are actually middle-class on developed nations. Products that you might consider, let's say you live in the United States or in Western Europe, and a product that you consider on your everyday supermarket, you see it here on a premium price, is expensive for the average Venezuelan, and it is usually consumed by only the top, let's say, top 5, top 10% of the Venezuelan population. And this phenomenon is happening, of course, because the purchasing power of the average Venezuelan has been decimated, and the average population, their purchasing power actually has been slowly, steadily increasing on the past 5 years. Still, their income goes only to the most basic necessities: food, shelter, healthcare, education, and so on. So they don't consume that much on leisure and hospitality or high-end services, and so on and so on. One of the reasons actually if you're from abroad and you have come to Venezuela, you consider the country expensive. I discussed many times, Venezuela is not prohibited expensive like Dubai, Switzerland, something like that. But it's not a very cheap country, third world country that most of you think is a little bit more expensive compared to, let's say, Colombia. And of course, depends on the bracket of the consumer price indexes. Leisure and hospitality and discretionary spending is more expensive in Venezuela compared to, let's say, Colombia. But regarding housing and also utilities and so on, it's more actually it's more affordable compared to other countries in Latin America or capitals in Latin America. Okay. Now, what happened is right now, since on this slowly process where the average Venezuelan is regaining its purchasing power, most businesses are catered towards the high-end Venezuela because it's the people who can afford these services. So a lot of basic economic laws apply for this particular thing, like supply of demand. Of course, you have less supply you have less demand for particular goods and services, on this case, luxury or discretionary goods and services. So just a handful of people can afford it compared to other nations. So they became more expensive because less people, less economics of scale happen on this particular process. And hence, the unitary price is more expensive. And that's why when you go to a restaurant that should be high middle class, is actually very high class for Venezuelans. Like, let's say, a steakhouse, a fancy steakhouse, something like that. Now, the issue that we're seeing right now is that since many people just wing it, many entrepreneurs and small companies and so on are betting for, satisfying this particular sector of the market, there's a lot of competition over there, selling for the top dollar, selling for the high-end Venezuelan, and see a lot of competition, but at the same time, since those are pricey things, you cannot compete in price because it is expensive. All the cost structure is expensive to maintain, and many people are going out of business, sadly, on this particular tranche of the Venezuelan small business industry. Meanwhile, what I'm seeing right now is that the companies that are doing better in Venezuela are servicing those middle class and lower middle class Venezuelans. because they are, of course, they have less purchasing power, but they have to consume and participate on the Venezuelan economy, consuming necessary goods, like, of course, food staples, utilities, healthcare, education, maybe construction, stuff like that, and even discretionary services that are low-end discretionary services, like having a cheap beer by the beach, something of that nature. You know what I mean? So these kind of people that are able to create a good supply chain and a good cost structure, keep it low, but able to serve a bunch of people are the ones that are doing better regarding, of course, servicing the Venezuelan market. And also, people that I know from real estate, that they are catered mostly exclusively to high-end individuals in Venezuela, selling luxury properties and mansions and stuff like that. Actually, what pays the everyday bills is selling cheap properties to middle-class Venezuelans that have been saving up on the past years and selling their cheap property. Well, let's call it their cheap properties between $20,000 and $25,000. That, remember, we don't have mortgages, a mortgage market here, so they have to pay straight up cash. But these people, there are more than most people think, and they are purchasing properties with the hard-earned money, little savings, and this actually the best customers compare the quote-unquote rich mogul that comes and buys $1 million property. My particular take on this issue is that, well, actually I am the opposite end. I'm also serving clients, top dollar clients, quote-unquote, but it's a good strategy, because if you are going to compete and you have a market that over 20 million Venezuelans that they want to consume, they want to participate on the market, they need to participate on the market. So it's very savvy to create a cost structure and a service towards these people, a low-end spectrum of the market that go into the high-end, especially when there is a lot of competition on that particular sector of the market. Right now, you've seen some nuances. So the market, the invisible hand of the market is adapting right now in order to serve more of a middle-class audience. And of course, there is competition on the high end. So you see high-end prices on hotels and services and restaurants and clothing and apparel and so on. But you also are seeing recently discounts and sales and so on, and structures serving the impoverished Venezuelan, but at the same time that is slowly increasing their purchasing power. So right now, maybe they can eat out once in a month with their family, and they cannot afford a fancy steakhouse or something like that, or a sushi place, or they maybe want to eat a cheap hamburger with their wife and their kids. And right now, those are the businesses that they are more poised to grow in the future, because it's more profitable. It has a better ROI on the long run.
Thank you for watching Venezuela Insider. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. If you want to work with us, VenezuelaInsider.com. Thanks again, and have a nice day.